Like, I don't get why everybody's panicking, right? Okay, there's a 24-hour sun. Okay. But their model by no means gets vindicated by this because look what they have. They have a gas ball surrounded by water in a vacuum that has one heat source. It's been getting unevenly heated for millions of years. So, I mean, this hardly proves anything or makes them win in any shape. No, I mean, I don't get it. Why are flat earthers tripping out over this so badly? I don't get it. Okay, it kills the AE map, which was ridiculous to begin with. Okay, so what?
No, it doesn't even kill that either. Depends on like well, there's various ways that I'm just saying like I'm not trying to say my viewpoint on it. I'm just saying in general like the only thing it falsifies as I've been saying is just the like a singular non-apparent sun or like mostly non-apparent meaning it's just in a position circuiting around like three concentric circles of the Tropic of Cancer, equator, and Tropic of Capricorn. And then there not being a 24-hour sun in the south, like with that kind of thing. I mean, it's kind of like just like the face of a clock. I mean, the reason that that is pretty, whatever all is going on in people's minds, but I was kind of joking saying that there's sort of like mainstream flat earthers, maybe more so than we think, because back in like 2015, 16, 17, it was very like organic and kind of root style. Like we were all kind of like lone warriors in our own way, and then we like found each other, and it was like, whoa, we found others, and it was exciting and stuff. But I guess like there was a censorship in 2019 that kicked in, and then the whole COVID thing, which just upped the censorship in the whole world. They literally kind of muzzled the world. And then now there's like sort of this TikTok era where apparently there's a lot of people that are coming onto Flat Earth through TikTok. And I've heard there's a lot of like false information in those TikTok videos. Like, I mean, I've looked at some of them and I've actually seen a few where I'm like, what is this? Like I was like, this is like a flat earth video, but it almost seems like either like wrong information or misinformation. Now we could even think like consider like okay, is like the CIA, are they planting a bunch of kind of half shoddy videos on TikTok to try to like whatever. I mean that could be a possibility too, but I'm just saying there might be like a little bit of a different thing where like a lot of people like there was like just waves of people just kind of accepting the AE map with the sun circling around Polaris as just the replacement. Like, oh, that's the replacement, along with all, space is fake and all the other stuff. And if they're not really like talking to other people and doing tests and knowing people in the community and understanding all the complexities, they might kind of be more liable to just sort of be like, oh yeah, AE map, there it is, that's the Earth. I'm a flat earther kind of thing, if that's what they would say themselves. And then yeah, and then everything else. And then like if they don't really like even maybe know yeah, like I said, all more of the history and stuff. And then maybe if these guys just go, maybe there is kind of a wave of like people in that category that are just, whatever it may be. Because that's why I was asking Witsit a couple of times. I was like, dude, do they like understand like the arc and the anti-arc? Because if you understand how the sky actually moves, like there's the arc and the anti-arc in terms of the Antarctic and the Arctic. And just like the stars at the equator, you see the rotation in the north, half of that, and then it's straight at the equator, and then you see the rotation in the south. Well, the sun does that same thing. When the sun is north of the equator, it arcs towards the North Pole, as it were. And when it goes south of the equator, it anti-arcs. So it mirrors and arcs the other way. So it completely makes sense that there's two 24-hour suns and that's exactly how it functions because that's exactly the way a magnetic field aligns too. Sorry, I'm being long-winded now. That was a lot. My bad. What was the main? I guess the main thing I was just saying is, yeah, like I was asking Witsit if these people that are all saying it's fake and there's no 24-hour sun or whatever it is. I was asking Witsit like, do they know that and stuff? And Witsit basically said he doesn't think so. He's like, no, probably not. He's like, they don't even know that nuance of it. So that would let me kind of know that they're maybe not the most in-depth researchers because I mean I've known about that since the beginning and I could go deeper into what I, because some of my thoughts on it from before and how that's changed, but I won't go on that side thing. But SE, I'll pass it back to you. But you hear what I'm saying with all that? I know that was a lot. Sorry. Sometimes my mind is like I don't know, it's like a tree branch and it goes off onto a side thing. But anyways, but yeah, so
Cool, bro.
that may be part of what is going on, and people just accepted that, like I said, without kind of like having the full range of information, maybe. And then now they're kind of just saying it's fake, just because they're kind of scared that it's being taken away or they might lose it, and that, maybe they're having a reaction.
Yeah, like we were talking about the AE map, like being not so, functional, shall we say, as what the flat earthers once believed. And some of them showed it. Speaking for myself, I always had a problem with that, right? With the ice wall, the pizza dish. I said it before. I'll say it again, right? Ice floats. Uh, Now, what can I say? Like, I knew there was going to be a 24-hour sun there. I knew it for sure because of so many people that have been talking about it through the ages. And also, we have another spot on Earth where it does the same thing, right? So to me, it wasn't a big deal. So let's say now their model, let's say we're scoring points here now, right? Which to me means nothing. A light in the sky doesn't denote shape. But let's give them that, right? 1 point for the globe, right? 0 for the other side, right? In their model.
No, it's not
Okay.
a zero.
Well, no, I haven't finished yet. I'm going to start adding up the points now on the other side, right? Now
I'm gonna protest the zero. I'm just joking. Yeah, go ahead.
yeah, noted. There's a protest on the zero. There definitely is no zero there. Yeah, but now look how the points are going to start adding up to our side, right? They claim they're living on a ball with water next to a vacuum. Impossible. 1 point on the other side. They say the same thing with the Atmos, right? Another point on our side. Then they say they have a sun they have one sun, one heat source that only heats up the center. Another breakup, but that's impossible. So it's 3-1 right there. If we gave it to them, which it's a present, right? I mean, their model, and I haven't even gotten to after what happens in the solar system and later on with gravity and black hole. I can destroy that as well, their cosmology. But even there, if we give them that, they're still down 3-1.
Okay, well, no, I hear you, and yeah, those are kind of different points as well, and I hear you on those. But and that could all be gone into, but in the way that they describe the Earth as a globe, and the fact that the sky does function like a celestial sphere in a lot in like just in terms of going from north to south, like whatever you think the Earth is, if you're at like 40 degrees north and you see the rotation, and then you go to the equator and you see what's going on there, and then you go south of the equator and you see what's going on there, you can easily see that like the North Pole basically is a whole rotation. That's like the north side of the celestial sphere, if you want to call it that. Then at the equator, it's like leveled out, and you see the sphere from the center. You see the two rotations equally spaced out, and then the straight in the middle. And then as you go south, the southern one, tilts or whatever and gets higher in the sky. And that whole rotation of that rotational thing, what we call the northern rotation and the southern rotation of stars, is the same, arc and anti-arc of what the sun does throughout the year. Like when it's in the north, it does that whole effect in the north with the 24-hour sun. And then when it's in the south, it does it in the south. So whatever we would say the Earth is, it seems to have that celestial sphere between what we call that north and south. Now they describe that and say, well, actually, you're on a globe, and that celestial sphere is way out there, billions of light years, all the stars, and they're all coming at you parallel. So that's what they do, and it works because for a couple of reasons. Yeah, like like the way a planetarium works with a hemispherical dome and then the floor and so on. So like
Are you
it
saying
can it
two
can be mapped
actual?
that way.
Sorry to interrupt. Are you saying two actual rotations, like two actual, one in the south and one in the north? I've heard that before. Or no?
Well, what do you mean by real rotate. Yeah, I mean,
Like the sky actually rotating clockwise in one area and counterclockwise in the south, or whichever way it is, I forget.
yeah. Well, here I'm gonna just. I know I post these a lot, but I'm gonna post them again just in the chat real quick, because it is kind of good to visualize. So it's like Walter Bislin's thing or whatever. So whatever shape the Earth is, kind of who cares? You know, globe, flat, whatever, right? Flat. It doesn't even matter. Let's just say just remove that, and you just have that hemisphere that of what we see. Nobody would really argue that we see in a hemisphere. Even the globe model admits that, you know, et cetera. We see, you know, whatever you want to call it, et cetera. We see even on a globe, you see in a hemisphere because you can't see around the other side of the ball unless there's magical refraction that makes an infinite radius, but that's another story. So either way though, this is kind of what we have. That's why this data is pulled from Stellarium and so on. And then I could just pull up Stellarium as well, or I could post picture real quick. Like here, I'll just grab this one. This one kind of shows an azimuthal grid as well. So that shows kind of like a Stellarium view. And I think I took a couple different zoom levels of it. Yeah, that one's a little more zoomed out. So that kind of shows the hemispherical area that we see as well on Stellarium. So that's just mapped, you know, onto Walter Bislin's. Well, when you map it like that, the thing is that take that first one I posted at 42 after the hour. When you have that hemispherical range there of where you see and so on, like I said, same data from Stellarium, planetariums, etc. When you're looking at that rotation, if you're looking kind of up south at it, whatever angle you're at, you see that whole rotation of stars. And then also like the ecliptic and the sun and the moon and the what they call the planets, so the wandering stars, all of those are moving in that arc pattern, kind of like if you see that little yellow dot on it on the little hemisphere, that's basically supposed to be the sun essentially. And then you can see, I'm just going to repost it so it's first in the chat again. So yeah, you see that there's actually the sun and the moon on there. I think if you see those little dots, the little white dot and then the yellow one, um, well, that's the Tropic of Capricorn essentially, and then the middle of that sphere is the equator, etc. But so yeah, it kind of fits that too, where the tropics are. But the arc, the whole arc of everything in the sky is moving in the spherical fashion, as it were, all rotating around the southern crux or Sigma Octantis if you're in the south. Um, and then yeah, that's um, rotating clockwise, and the sun would go like left to right, and all of that. And like this one, that one's from the first one's at 53 degrees, kind of Punta Arenas kind of thing, and then this one is at like 80. So this would be their Union Glacier effect there, where the sun would actually go around. And then this one is just flipped to the North Pole, so it's just, you know, the whole celestial sphere inverts basically, and then halfway, the last image here, halfway through is like this, where the sphere is 50-50. So whatever you think the Earth is, and however you think it's laid out, this seems to be the way the sky works. So like if we take it as planar, then yeah, that's it. Like meaning you have a planar azimuthal grid, and then as you move from what we call the north to the equator to what we call the south, this everything in the way that it arcs through the sky, the way that everything functions, the way that everything rotates north and south, seems to function like a hemisphere that tilts from the equator, arcing and anti-arcing, which of course is beautifully fits with the magnetic field and the way magnetic fields work and toroidal fields. I mean, there's so many ways that this, like just the way an electrical field itself organizes, fits this
I still
exact
can't
pattern.
wrap my brain around how there can be one sun on the AE map and do circles in one location, but yet be at another location at high noon.
Well, what do
I
you think
can't
of,
do it.
well, what I just posted right there, the electric field? So if you had like a rotation that, or if you had a pattern that was going on where maybe even this one as well, which shows all the arrows. So if you had like the sun was on those paths or whatever, like Yeah, I don't know if it would have to like Pac-Man when it's at the equator. That part's kind of weird. I don't know about that. But you see these patterns do kind of, I mean, they're not really Pac-Manning, but they are kind of, they're coming and then entering. But um, what it would be is that like imagine that those are the two star fields, like the north and south rotations, and then you have the equator in the middle. If the sun was closer to the one on the right, let's call that the north. If the sun was to the right of the equator, then it would be making all like those looping patterns, which you know, if you're far enough north and all that, you would then get a 24-hour sun. Whereas if the sun goes left of that equator thing, it starts doing the 24-hour sun in the south. But that happens, you know, once a year for each 6 months apart. So it's like two 24-hour suns, but now that kind of implies that the sun is actually doing kind of almost like a figure eight or something to that effect. But the thing is, just taking about the way we see the sky, it is in a way functioning that way. Like if that was just the stars at the equator, like you could see and if you did like a whole timeline, you could see the sun basically moving through those, you know, that actual field, you know, through the days basically, like day one, day two, day three, and you would see it actually moving, and it is arcing and anti-arcing, you know, when it does that, when it passes over the equator. Now that does fit the globe model, so I have no problem like you know, saying it does, you know, at least to a basic level, without getting into the further details, and that's fine because they're just extrapolating the celestial sphere and asserting the Earth is a sphere and the celestial sphere surrounds you, and the lights are very very far away with parallel light rays, which they have to invoke to then curve the Earth in an assumed fashion. But
Are you saying the Earth's
yeah.
path is in the center of the owl's eyes? Shall we call them that? Are you saying the path is in the center there?
Well, that's where the sun would be at the equinox.
Oh, at the equinox, right? During the Okay, this
Yeah,
is
because like this right here, stars at the equator, shows the arc and anti-arc of the sky, and then it shows that, so very similar to the magnetic fields, except it's obviously a much smaller portion, so you can't see the whole rotations because it's obviously just aiming the camera up at, you know, at the equator, but it's that same pattern. And so if you were to like do a time lapse, let's say, of the position of the sun while you were taking like that picture right there that I just posted, like if you were to track the sun as it comes, you know, from the, let's say, from the Tropic of Cancer, every day it's getting closer and closer to the equator. Gets to the equator, that's at the equinox, and then it starts going out towards the Tropic of Capricorn for the northern and the southern summers, respectively. Well, the sun would actually be, just like all these stars are the time lapse, like the sun would actually be, you know, in the same position of the sky as these stars. It's making the same thing. And so if the sun was a little bit north of the equator, you would see the sun making that pattern, you know, same kind of general rotation as the stars. And then when it goes south, same thing as well. So whatever is occurring, like it first of all fits a magnetic field, and then it seems to have that symmetry.
yeah. It's weird. Like I can't
This
see
kind
how
of
you
this
can
shows
make a one sun. I can't see it in in both models actually, if you want to call them models.
well, like here's what's wild, dude. That last one I just posted is it shows kind of like a really wide panorama that's like got both rotations, kind of a crazy picture. And that kind of shows the magnet, you know, a coil and wires and rotating magnetic fields and stuff. But basically what's so wild about it is that if the little thing on the top of the time lapse that's completely panorama or whatever, that little thing there, like if you were to put little dots where the sun was, maybe like once a week or something, like basically like you would have the two halves of the analemma and the two 24-hour suns and the two rotations when the sun is in the north and the south. Now they have their explanation on the globe, like, oh, you know, um because you know you're on a tilted globe instead of a tilted celestial sphere. So I mean they have their explanation, but
Yeah, the sun is a real doozy. to be sure.
But like the sun literally goes through, like in that picture of showing the both, the sun literally moves through both of those sides of it basically, and then when it's all the way at the Tropic of Cancer, then it's really circling more the north, obviously. Then it's really, and yeah, like on a tilted globe and stuff. Like I said, I'm fine to kind of give that to them in their model or whatever. That fits okay in terms of the way that they have it. Doesn't mean the Earth is a globe though, but whatever is occurring. So like, yeah, you before you talk about the AE map and that you've never thought that was the case, and I hear you on that. So I mean, if you've never even thought that was the case, and if you still don't think it's the case, and all that, then like, what is the other option? Because the only other thing that's kind of been brought up, now, do you have anything else? Would be this one, which we've, this kind of dual pole, which, would have kind of, if you put that magnetic field, you'd have the two rotations of stars, and then the sun would either be in the southern half or at the northern half, depending on what part of the year it is. And then that preserves Antarctica as a continent. But there's obviously some other possible issues with this and so on. But I mean, this has two poles, it has two 24-hour suns, it has all that. Now, what does the sun do when it's at the equator? Does it Pac-Man? That's kind of trippy. Maybe like you could get into a different idea of the sky, that it's not necessarily like a physical thing above us. But Brian Leakey did a really cool thing where he took like a little glass dome and put it on a sheet of paper where he had a bunch of parallel lines, like parallel stars that were all just parallel. And he put the dome on it. And then it basically made like this pattern. Here, I'll post the video, and if you just watch like the first half of it, because he kind of links it to the dual pole model in the second half. But if you see that video, um, it's pretty cool. And he basically, Brian Leakey did this. Yeah, he put the stars like the straight lines. Then he puts that glass dome over it, and when he puts the glass dome over it, it makes basically this whole shape that we're talking about, like the straight line at the equator, the two rotations. It even shows a northern and southern rotation. So I mean, dude, the whole sky could be a lens. I mean, and Brian Leakey did this over a flat piece of paper. So there was no globe that was required, and it made the patterning of what we see in the sky. Not to say that like the map he says is the correct one or in the second part of the video, but just that first part. And so if you have something like that, then you would, yeah, like, so is that what you're thinking it might be then? If you don't think it's anything like the AE map, or do you have a third alternative, or do you just not even have, because that's the other one that's somewhat been discussed, because it would be actually two poles over a planar surface with maybe slightly different layouts. But if you look at map projections, there's like at least 7 or 8 of them that are similar to that, which kind of reminds you of a Mercator too. It's kind of that square layout kind of style, but planar and having the two poles.
Right. Yeah. Some sort of projection, maybe. I don't know, bro. Like, all I can, like, I have to be true to myself, right? So the only thing I can say is I can't see it working on an AE. Like, it's impossible for me, right? There would have to be two suns, right? One doing one thing here and another doing one thing there. So as far as what else it can be, I could only speculate. Like, I've been saying this for ages, right? Like, I just don't know. I you know. But I know one thing for sure: it doesn't work on an AE map, and I knew that from before. And also the the ice wall. I was talking like that doesn't make sense to me either, unless you're talking about. Now here's all speculation. Now, unless you want to talk about like the melted pond theory, where there's like a huge ice sheet and there's multiple suns. And I'm not saying this is what I believe now, right? I'm just saying what I've heard other people say. So you have like your melted pond here, and that's us, right? And we have the land in the middle. You want to,
All
but
right.
still, one sun doesn't work on that either, right? You can't have it doing one thing on the edge and another thing on the other side. So I mean,
Well, okay. So one thing though, I hear you. One thing about the AE map, as it were, just one thing about it, meaning I'm really just mostly referring to if you take the continents and you lay them out, coming from the center, concentrically coming out from the center. sort of like spokes of a wheel. You have the North America and South America stretch. You have the Europe and Africa stretch over there. You have the sort of Asia and sort of Australia stretch. Third one, spoke of the wheel. And then the fourth one would kind of be like where Hawaii is. And there are a lot of the ancient legends of like Lemuria, that there's a ton of land there. And maybe they're even hiding land from us in the Southern Pacific as well. So that would be like the kind of missing one, like on like the AE type map. That's like the fourth kind of leg. Now, the thing about that though, about laying the continents out that way, I mean, leaving that whole Lemuria thing just to the side. I'm just saying, like laying them out that way, is that the sun, as it circuits around, circuits around Polaris, because I mean, you can watch it circuit Polaris when, or circle the sky there when it's a 24-hour sun in the north. So, um, as it does that, the zenith point of the sun, like when it's high noon, in at whatever continent, will match. So like when it's high noon in South America, in Ecuador, the timing. And then if you time it, and then when it's high noon over in China, you time that. When it's high noon in, etc. So in Russia, in Europe, in Africa, like the timing of the sun for the day and so on matches the timing of laying the continents out in that fashion. Now, the southern thing seems pretty distorted on the AE map and whatever else is going on. I'm just talking about that part of the AE map does work, as a timepiece part of it, with the sun circuiting around. And in terms of when all the continents get their sun, when the sun's at high noon at all those continents. So that is one
Do
thing
you
just that's very interesting and potentially to keep in mind, just because that part
have a
does fit.